It's a Tuesday edition of Husker247 Daily. I'm Michael Bruntz, Brian Christopherson over there. It's Iowa week. If you unfortunately married into a family, an Iowa family, it's a tough week for you, I'm sure, especially with Thanksgiving coming up on deck as well. Before we get into it, we're running a deal at Husker247 this week, early Black Friday deal, 75% off your first year at Husker247. That is the best deal we have all year. It will not get any better than that. Limited time there, but hop on that deal. If you've been on the fence, now's the time to do it. Let's get into what this rivalry is. You posed the topic for the day, Brian. And I was going back through last year's kerfuffles. You had the cops. The cops out on the field to keep Nebraska from meeting pregame on the logo. You had Handshake Gate, which was something, I guess. But it's do you feel like Nebraska fans have warmed more to this rivalry as time's gone along? Because I think whenever Nebraska entered the Big Ten, there was kind of this kind of shoulder shrug when it came to these like trophy type games. And I know, Nebraska's in two of them where they've been created in the last 15 years, but what do you kind of take the temperature, I guess, of what this matchup's been?
I think a lot of Nebraska fans would say, I'm not calling it a rivalry, but I do hate them.
Yeah.
Which I think makes
let it flow through you.
Which I think makes it a rivalry. And I can say that, with sort of I feel like unbiased perspective, because I do have Iowa relatives and the feeling is mutual. So yeah, I think there's disdain for both sides. Not that you wouldn't be friendly to them in line at Casey's as you get your breakfast pizza. But when you get to talking about football and these two teams, I think Nebraska fans get annoyed with how Iowa has managed to be consistently good at 8, 9, 10 wins with sort of a bad offense for like a decade plus and sort of doing it that way. And I think Iowa fans, if I were to try to put words in their mouth, think Nebraska gets too big for their britches and lives on the past. I think that's how people interpret the other side.
That's the episode. Yeah, I think you got it. You got right to it.
Is that it?
You nailed it.
Yeah. But the trophy game thing, Bruntz, I remember when Nebraska first joined the Big Ten. You can't speak for everybody, of course, but there were people who were kind of down on the whole trophy thing. And it's around here you go for a national title and all that stuff. And there was sort of a knock on that little part of it and the significance the Big Ten placed on going to the Rose Bowl, for instance. And I do think over time, whether people want to say it out loud or not, the power of certain teams when you're going against them of raising whatever it is in the air. It could be like a used stapler that someone picks out and they're like, we're setting it over here. And whoever wins gets to run over to this used stapler and click it all over the place in front of your face.
Can we bronze it? Can we bronze the stapler at least?
Yeah, but it has to be able to actually work. So you could
okay.
Okay. But you can't tell me there's not power in that. When Nebraska actually won one out there under Mickey in 22 and they paraded that thing down the line, those Husker fans who were in the building know what that felt like. It was like a bad season, but it's yeah, in your face, suckers. And Iowa obviously has experienced that a lot. As we know, you can get into Nebraska's home record. It's not great against these guys.
Yeah, it's a hide the women and children rundown of results for Nebraska the last 10 years basically in this one.
Yeah, last home win was 2011. When did you start at 247 Sports?
That was the first year. I've been at 247 as long as Nebraska's been in the Big Ten.
So Nebraska won their first game in the Big Ten against Iowa 20-7, and they've lost 6 straight. And what strikes me as bizarre, I don't know if there's one that stands out to you above the others, but 7 of them have been 1-score games. In the last 7 years have been 1-score games. And 4 of those have been walk-off kicks, or essentially walk-off kicks with like a second left, which since 2018, which is rather incredible, including the last two. And both times Nebraska had the ball, seemingly driving for their own kick the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it ends up somehow within a minute switching over, and Iowa's got the ball and they're kicking to win it.
I think you asked if one stood out more than the others. Here's the dumbest one was the one 2 years ago where you get the Tommy Hill pick. You basically run it back to midfield, maybe even farther than midfield.
They got a penalty on the run back, but
yeah. And you get the quick Chubba Purdy pick, the long run, and then the bang field goal, and that's it. Like I think that one more than any, I think kind of just puts a nice little tidy bow with your stapler on what this matchup series has been for Nebraska. And I think your earlier kind of diagnosis of the matchup from the Nebraska point of view is accurate, where there's like this frustration where this team that seemingly, for the last decade has struggled with the forward pass is able to just get it done in new and mysterious ways every year. I mean, last year you have, Nebraska basically has Iowa, pretty much in control, and then you get, a bouncing punt that goes off of somebody, and then, that's the break they need, or, the pick the year before that. Just stuff like that always kind of seems to go Iowa's way in this matchup. And you could make the argument that some of that is just Iowa, continuing to plod along and play its game. And then, Nebraska does the Wile E. Coyote routine every year and goes off the cliff on the roller skates. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the way the series has gone the last few. And even when Nebraska won, like that game in Iowa City that they won, the Rex Burkhead game, it wasn't like that was a dominating win by any means. Like you really kind of had to grind it out.
Yeah, it's never easy. Iowa's won 9 of the last 10. The one Nebraska won was the day it was coming out that Matt Rule was getting hired, actually. And that was a 24-0 game that turned into a 24-17 game with Iowa with the ball and all that stuff. And you kind of felt like, here we go again. Last year, to me, is the one that takes the cake. Nebraska had 20 first downs. Iowa had 5. And the yardage was ridiculously lopsided. But Iowa had one play, which was like half their yards, where Caleb Johnson bounces off 6 guys. Nebraska, remember, missed a pass play early in that game where they had, I can't remember who was open, but I think Ryle overshot him a bit. And then, the ball that went through the hands of the receiver's not with us anymore. I can't think
Nair.
Nair, Isaiah Nair. I mean, it's just stuff like that where it's right there, and they've let those things slip. 21 Frost year, Nebraska up 21-9 going to the fourth quarter. Iowa blocks a kick for a touchdown. Then they get a safety to make it 21-18, and they end up winning, 28-21. It's that kind of stuff. Like, that's why this week, the only thing I know is it's probably going to be a close game. Like, even the year Mike Riley, his first year, 2015, Iowa came in, remember, 11-0, and it was kind of a false goods type of 11-0. You hate to say that, but they hadn't played a good schedule, and they won all these close games. Nebraska out-yarded them like 500 to 250 or something like that, and lost. They threw a pick 6 and lost 28-20. It just goes on and on, sort of. And that's why I think Husker fans do have some trepidation probably about Friday. And we'll see, Bruntz, if this team, which has won a couple close games, lost a couple, but they maybe are starting to flip that script a little bit with the win over Cincy. They'll come back in the last minute at Maryland, stuff like that. Now, can you do it against a team that just feels like right at home in those type of games? Although it should be noted, Iowa's lost 4 games by a total of 15 points. So it's not like they've won all the close ones this year either.
And Matt Rule said yesterday that there's no magic play against Iowa, and I think that's you're basically saying that you have to execute for 60 minutes of football, and that's a little bit scary coming off of a Penn State matchup where it seemed like Nebraska, especially defensively, was just all out of sorts. I mean, they were dominated up front, but even the run fits weren't great. You can see where you can kind of see the game plan I was going to use. I mean, it's going to be a patient game plan. It's going to be what we've kind of expected for years, and Nebraska is going to have to be up to the task in this one.
Even when early on in the season, Mark Gronowski was all over the place with his throws, you would watch him run in like September games, and I was like, oh boy, like that could be trouble. And they're, in a way, for what Nebraska is right now on defense, it's like the worst kind of opponent to play. Like, because they are going to just stay with it. And we've seen these explosives just pop up again and again. And how many Iowa-Nebraska games has it seemed like things are just going along okay? And then one of those, a guy sneaks through on a outside zone play or something that's slow developing, but he just pops through there and he's gone 65 yards. And it's like that. I mean, that's been this series in a lot of ways.
It has been. We'll hear from Nebraska's coordinators today. We'll have updates at Husker247 from that. Probably quite a few players, 19 seniors being honored on Friday as well in this one. Guys that would like to end their regular season with the win over Iowa. Keep it locked on Husker 24/7 for everything this week leading up to the matchup with the Hawkeyes.